Welcome everybody to this Just Chatting podcast, part of the Nerds Chatting Network. My name is Nate, and today I'm going to be speaking to Spencer Stoner. I talked to Spencer about growing up in Reno, writing books, D&D, and all things nerdy. This is part of a series of podcasts in which I explore the creation, the sale, and the consumption of comic books. I hope you enjoy. So here I am with Spencer, as I've just said in the intro, we'll be talking about creators, artists and creators. Spencer, I apologise, I have been all business before now, but this is genuinely the first time we've met, isn't it?
Yes, it is. All we've had so far has been text back and forth.
Text back and forth and a little bit of tech not working, but here we are now. So let's jump straight into it. And tell me all about yourself. Tell the people listening what your name is, where you're from, and give us a little bit of background on yourself.
All right. My name is Spencer Stoner. I'm from Reno, Nevada, in the good old US of A. I am an author. I've written 3 novels in what I call the Ophelia Legacy series. It's a fantasy action adventure. I'm a black belt in Kenpo Karate, and I don't like going out much, so I stay at home and play video games a lot.
That's very cool. What sort of games do you play?
Well, right now, I play mostly on PS4, although I do have a very nice Nintendo museum going all the way back to the old 8-bit.
Amazing. SNES was my introduction. I used to love the SNES. A bit of Mario Kart and so on. Anyway.
Oh, our family got very violent with Mario Kart. Very violent.
Yeah. It's definitely
many elbows thrown. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, now I'm playing Anthem, but it's fun. It's still got its issues, of course, but they're working through it.
I literally have just seen a poster for it. I don't know anything about it. I don't know what it is, or is it like a massive multiplayer online or something, or?
Yeah. It's a massive multiplayer online shooter looter, kind of like Destiny, right. except in third person. But if you ever wanted to be Iron Man, this would be the game to play.
Who doesn't want to be Iron Man, right?
Me. I like Captain America.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. Okay. Well, we were on different sides when Civil War came out then.
It happens.
Yeah, it does.
Our house was divided too, so.
Cool. Okay, so you say you're from Reno. Have you always been there? Is that you born and bred in there?
Yep, born and raised. Spent a few years up in Idaho, came to my senses and came back.
What took you to Idaho?
Well, I was 12 years old, so my mom got a job up there, and it didn't pan out. And after a couple of years, we came back to Reno.
Cool. Very cool. Okay, so you've alluded a little bit to the writing that you've done. But tell me more about it. Tell me about what you've been working on, the story, how it plays out, who these characters are. Give us a little bit of a tease for it.
All right. Well, my latest project is my first graphic novel, actually. It's called Divine Intervention. Okay. It's a spin-off from my latest Ophelia Legacy novel entitled Ophelia, Demons, and Money.
Nice.
And so in that book, Ophelia, Demons, and Money, I actually had 2 separate storylines going on. One with Ophelia, who was, conveniently enough, the main protagonist of the series, since her name's in the title and all.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah. And another storyline that actually takes place 20 years later. Okay. That's interconnected with the main character in that storyline is named Apollonia.
Okay, nice. Godfather Part 2 reference there.
Yeah, or Prince in the Revolution. Either way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I ended up enjoying writing Apollonia and the rest of her friends so much that I wanted to do a spin-off title. And my publisher goes, "Hey, we're expanding into comics now. Did you have anything?" And I'm like, I do.
Cool. So why did you like writing the Apollonia character so much?
Well, she's actually the daughter of one of the characters that Ophelia hangs with a lot.
Okay.
His name is Harbinger. He's a cleric from a goddess named Kuan Yin. And I had this storyline in mind when I was writing the first novel that Harbinger was in, where he would get in trouble with his goddess because he killed somebody because he was trying to rescue a friend.
Okay.
but I couldn't make the scene work. So I ended up giving that scene to Apollonia in Ophelia, Demons and Money.
Okay, so you were desperate
And
for the scene to be in it still, but you couldn't. You knew that worked, but not in the context of what you were doing.
yeah, the scene worked. I just had the wrong character I tried to plug in.
Right.
But then I found the other character said, "Oh, yeah, I screwed up. I did this."
Okay. So I guess that's interesting to me. I'm sort of jumping around a little bit on the questions that I've given you, but that's interesting to me that you've said there about you knew you had this thing that you wanted to do, but didn't quite work in the project you were working on, or the piece of work. How does that work for you? What's your process like? Where do you know the story of the complete story of each book you're writing, or do you know the arc of the whole trilogy? How does that work for you? Where do you come at it from?
Well, in the case of my Ophelia Legacy series, I have most of the land. I think of it like a big map.
Yeah.
I know all the main landmarks of all the major places that we need to go,
Right.
but I let the characters decide if we're just going to go straight from point A to point B, or if they are going to meander a very long way back and forth
I
until they
love
reach
that.
point B.
That's great. So you let the characters do it.
Yeah, I'm kind of a mix between a planner and what my writing group calls a pantser. You know, somebody who flies by the seat of their pants and just kind of lets it rip.
That's great. Okay, so you know like your ending. Do you work at the end, or how do you start? Like where does it come from? Where's the original idea come from for you?
Well, Ophelia actually kind of started as a D&D character, kind of a proto version of her.
Yeah.
And I just enjoyed playing her so much. It got to the point where, for my particular group, I was the DM. I was playing two different characters, and so I had a lot of creative control over what happened.
Sure.
And ended up, by the end, we almost ended up throwing away the D&D books and had almost a completely new world built up that I call Honua.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So then I took the next logical step and made a book.
Yeah. Well, I guess, I mean, D&D, it can get so rich that you're writing all this stuff down anyway, aren't you? You know, you're capturing all of these details, the minutiae of these characters' lives, and you're also being them, so you know them inside and out. So it's not a giant leap to then, like you say, write it down as a book.
Yeah, absolutely. Although it is kind of funny in Ophelia's origin story, which was actually, oddly enough, the second novel in the series. The Third Life of Ophelia, as that one's called.
Okay.
I just completely lost my train of thought.
Well, no, you're talking about how D&D, like the origin story was the second one.
Yeah, I was kind of redoing some of the adventures that we had, but I had forgotten some things. So my character, remember how I mentioned it was kind of a proto version of Ophelia?
Yeah.
This version changed because the events changed. Because I couldn't remember some of the precise things that happened. She said, "Oh, well, we're going to go off this way now."
Yeah. I like that she told you. Yeah, that's cool.
She's a very strong woman. She doesn't take no for an answer very often.
How do you find that? How do you find writing as a woman? Do you find you need to change the way you approach things, or do you just feel it comes naturally?
Well, I've been raised with three sisters and my mother, of course.
Yes.
And so I've been surrounded all my life with strong women.
Yeah.
I mean, none of my family are wallflowers by any stretch of the imagination. So basically, I see Ophelia as kind of my id.
Yeah. That's cool.
She's the one who actually does the things I would do if I had the gumption. Like if somebody pissed me off,
yeah,
I would want to punch them.
Yeah.
Ophelia actually would punch them.
That's very good. Cool. So you said you changed some things because you maybe didn't remember or it didn't work, but like are a lot of your stories from the D&D games you were playing, or is it all original on top of that? How does that come
Well,
about?
well, it's all pretty much an original on top of that. I just kind of I use the D&D adventures to kind of get the ball rolling,
Yeah.
but then and that's how I got to know the characters pretty well. But those are mostly short stories and stuff that may never actually see the light of day.
Yeah. Okay. So you've
So
got them stored away from a different time.
yeah, and
What
then books are a completely separate affair, but still a lot of fun.
did you include any of the other characters from the other players, like real world players? Did you include any of those characters in there, or is Ophelia the only one because it's come from you? How does that work?
Well, it's kind of weird. In our particular group, I kind of helped co-create everybody
Oh, cool.
because Ophelia's best human friend, her name is Leanne Bumpy, and she is a bunny barbarian from the land of the long-toothed rabbit.
Right, that's right up my alley. I want to read that. I want to read that all day, every day.
Yeah, actually, as the series has gone on, the Yobumpi warriors are probably one of the most popular elements
I bet
in
they
it.
are. That
Yeah,
sounds
but
cool.
yeah, some of the characters are heavily influenced by my friends who
Yeah,
helped create them.
yeah.
But then then of course I had to create completely separate ones, of course, for anybody who didn't want me to use their characters,
So
because it's,
go on.
it's it's them. So
Have your friends like read your books and remarked on the characters? Do they know that you've been doing this, or is that
they know I've been doing this. The only people in my family who actually have read my books from cover to cover have been my oldest sister and my mother.
Oh yeah,
Um,
cool. The harshest
yeah, the
critics,
rest,
I'm sure.
yeah, the rest of my family just goes. I hope you're having fun with them.
Yeah,
Just make sure you represent them well, and we'll be good.
yeah, yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I have that same conversation about, hey, I do a podcast about nerdy things, and my family are like, oh, good. Hope you're having fun. Exactly the same. So that's really cool. We've dipped our toe into D&D like very very briefly. We bought the starter set and we thought we'd give it a go, and we thought we'd be playing for like an hour or something, and then like it was this Ben who I do the other podcast with, and it was like 8 hours straight, and the only reason we stopped is 'cause we were exhausted because it was the middle of the night. It was such a engaging experience that, and we need to go back to it, but we haven't yet.
Yeah. Oh, I know that feeling well. We've had sessions where our characters, I had to whole big adventures for him to dive into, the deepest, dankest labyrinths,
Yeah.
and we ended up just having so much fun. Our characters never even left the bar,
Yeah.
never left the inn.
Yeah, yeah.
So we just had conversations, and it was great character building. Not much in the way of it getting stuff done, but boy, was it fun still. And again, it like took 8 hours. It took 8 hours for us to go nowhere.
Yeah, yeah. That's
It
the,
was
the,
beautiful.
the great thing about it. Beautiful, that's a good description. I like it. Okay, so I'm gonna move off slightly from this topic, but I think it's related. So I'm really interested in your background, sort of, school and other career that you've had. I mean, you've alluded to stuff, loving D&D, so you're already on the right track with me. But tell me a little bit about your life before writing.
I didn't really have much life before writing. I've been wanting to be a writer since I was at oldest 12.
Wow.
In fact, I actually started wanting to write comic books
Right.
because I kind of I cut my teeth in reading comics on X-Men #1 by Chris Claremont and Jim Lee.
Wow, what a comic. That's a good one.
Yeah, that was a good starter, and
Yeah.
I just fell so in love with the characters that I want to do this too.
Yeah.
And I had no idea how to format comics and stuff. So I try I can draw, kind of,
Okay.
enough to avoid what I call wandering mole syndrome for my characters. I draw them so they have a consistent look, but
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I don't forget where I put a mole or something.
Yeah, sure. Okay, that's cool.
But I'm not. I don't have the discipline to be able to draw a full comic.
Sure.
That's why I got Stephanie Hagney, my artist for Divine Intervention.
Yeah.
She could draw the whole comic. I could write a whole comic. She could draw it. I can't draw it.
So,
So
so
I
if
let him
you
have that.
if you started in comic books and you wanted to write comic books, how comes your first three books are books? You know, what's why
Well,
didn't you draw them? Oh,
as I was, trying to learn to draw and write comics at the same time, which, as experience uh, taught me, was kind of not the way it works well for me.
yeah.
I found myself more involved in the writing side of things, and like I said, I had no idea how to format
Mm.
comics at the time. And back in my day, when I was a youth, we didn't have the internet to serve all this information.
I can see the meme now. Yeah.
Yeah, so and I was, and at this point, this is when we moved a small podunk town in Idaho,
Yeah.
so I didn't have access to even a Barnes and Noble back then to be able to find books on comic book writing. So I kind of just winged it. So I ended up starting writing short stories. Since I had no idea on the format, I thought you just wrote a story and somebody adapted it.
Yeah.
And I wrote more and more short stories. Started playing D&D, and then I decided I had a book. I wanted to try and have a book to see if I had a book in me. And that
Yeah.
was my first book. It's called Ophelia and Leon Are Dead Meat.
Nice.
And thank you. And that came out really fun. And then, the zeitgeist took over, and I've put out two more books since then. I have Divine Intervention, my first graphic novel, coming out soon, and I'm working on the next Ophelia Legacy novel and a sci-fi novel
Oh, cool. Tell me
at the
about the
same
sci-fi
time.
novel. Tell me about that one. Sci-fi is more where my heart lives. I love a bit of fantasy, but I grew up on Star Trek, so it's
Same here.
yeah,
I was a big Trekkie growing up.
yeah, same.
Yeah.
So what's that all
Um,
about? Can you tell me about it?
well, yeah, absolutely. The working title for it, and I think this will be the main title. The working title for it is Dimensional Schism.
Nice.
It's set in Reno, Nevada. But it's an alternate Reno where an alien colony ship crash landed literally in the middle of Nevada, and the aliens have been living among humanity for about 20 years at the time of the novel.
Okay.
So the main character, his name is Mark. He meets an alien girl that I call the aliens Ketkes, only because the regular long name is way too long for even me to pronounce without reading it several times to make sure I kind of have and rehearsing.
I like you can't even pronounce your own stuff. That's great. That's the true sign of sci-fi.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Throwing apostrophes. It looks like Klingon kind of.
Brilliant. Yep.
But so he meets her name is Imgur, and they kind of start a relationship, and then there's a shadow organization that's trying to get the tech from the colony ship to work, and eventually the two storylines do kind of end up batting heads or butting
Cool.
heads. Well, heads are hurting.
So when you write stuff, how do you visualize it? Is it just because you say you're a fair artist, you can do a little bit of artwork. Do you sketch out what your characters look like, or are these aliens? Do you give them a look, or is it just all in your head and all on the words?
Well, my entire approach is I have to make, for the most part, there are of course exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, I always have to create the character first.
Okay.
So, Imgur, I had a vision for her, so I sketched her out. As a race, the Ketkes are pretty interesting. Yeah, they are very humanoid, except they don't have they don't have hair on their skin like us.
Okay.
They have almost a leathery. They have a leathery type of skin that's typically blue or gray, and sometimes has stripes, sometimes doesn't.
That's
And
very
then
cool.
instead of hair, they have thin tentacles that they can either shave off or let grow. And even their ears are like their hair is kind of like squid-like tentacles that are just long and thin. And then they have ears. Their ears are actually like octopus tentacles that go out about 4 to 6 inches from either side of their head, and what would be the suction cups on an octopus tentacle is actually their ear canals.
Wow. See, again, I personally would need to see that. I'd have to have that sat in front of me while I'm typing away the characters. I'd love to think that I could continually bring that to mind when writing, but I would need a visual representation of it. So that's
Yeah,
great.
that's where being able to sketch does help. That is very true.
Yeah, sure. So that's very cool. So okay, talk to me about the process of when you've written these books. Like, how do you get them out there? How do you, or even the short stories, like what do you do with them once you've produced it?
Well, the way I got started in this, my first novel, the Leon and Ophelia Are Dead Meat, I actually self-published that one. I had a friend who went through a company called Blue Harvest Creative, and she self-published her book through them, and I didn't even know she was a writer until then. And she told me about them, and so I self-published my first novel through them.
Right.
But then Blue Harvest kind of grew out of that phase of their business, and they became a full-fledged publisher. They are now BHC Press.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, yeah, and they liked my book enough to say, hey, your next one, did you want to go through our publishing label to put it out there? And I was like, sure. And we have a really good working relationship. They designed really brilliant looking covers.
Cool. So do you have any say in the cover, or is that just something like that someone reads it and then they produce it for you, or how does that work?
Well, I kind of give them. It's a little bit different with each book, but I give them a synopsis of the story and descriptions of the characters for the most part, and then they design a cover, send me back a rough let me try this again in English. They send me back a rough draft of what they have in mind for a cover.
Yeah.
And I either say, yes, please do this one, go with God, and hopefully it comes out looking beautiful.
Yeah.
Or I say, I prefer not. I prefer you do something else. I did that a lot with Dead Meat. Actually, right. It took them a couple of tries to get the right look for the cover that I was happy with.
Well, but what did they do that you weren't so keen on, or do you not want to talk about?
No, actually, it wasn't that the covers looked bad. They just didn't really fit the spirit of the book, in my opinion.
Yeah, because you can't avoid that. The people say the cover isn't the book, but actually there's a little bit of, you've got to entice people in to say this is what is inside this book.
Yeah, because in case you couldn't tell from the fact that I have bunny barbarians and stuff like that. The books aren't super serious.
Sure.
I'm no Douglas Adams, so I don't do a comedy well. But what I can do is I can take absurd concepts like the bunny barbarians and treat them seriously. Because the thing is with Leon, she started as a joke. Leon Bumpy started as a joke.
Right.
But then she ended up developing such rich history that I just fell in love with the character, and she became a co-main character in my first book.
Yeah.
But to get back on the actual subject that we were talking about.
Sorry, I love it. I love the tangent.
When they first designed the cover, they were kind of going for a gothic horror style on the cover.
Okay.
Yeah, and it looked awesome because one of the main antagonists in the book Dead Meat is a lich, an undead wizard. And they had a bony, skeletal arm coming up out of the front on the cover and everything, and it looked awesome, but it didn't fit the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had them redesign it, and they came back with another really, really nice design. And since then, they've pretty much been knocking the book covers out of the park first try for me.
Cool. So then you jump from, you're doing the novels, we talked to this a little bit, you're doing the novels, and then you jump into doing basically doing a comic book, a graphic novel. So is that how does that feel to you? Do you have to approach it differently, and is there anything about, you said that that's where you came from, or at least where you approached writing from. How is that experience of writing a graphic novel different?
In the case of the graphic novel, the way I approach the characters is almost exactly the same.
Right.
But this is the first time I had to deal with a limitation on page space.
Sure.
Because if you ever get a chance to check out my novels, which you can order on Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com, or your finest book retailers.
I'll put a link below. I'll put a link in the description.
Thank you.
No worries.
If you look at my first novel, it's like half the size of the second and third novels.
Okay.
So once I found out I had a book in me, apparently the spigot just wouldn't close anymore.
Yeah.
So with the novels, I've had as much space as I needed to tell the story.
Yeah.
With Divine Intervention, it's a short graphic novel, but it's longer than a standard 22-page or 32-page comic. It's 59 pages, I believe.
Okay, yeah,
59, 60.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. So, but I had to deal with the hard break at 60.
Okay.
So it's like, so how do I fit the story I want to tell in those 60 pages? Well, thankfully, Stephanie Hagney, my artist on Divine Intervention, she's very good, thankfully. So she was able to help me figure out what scenes could be stretched out, which ones could be condensed. Because when I was writing the script, I was trying to envision the panels in my head.
Yeah.
But she's the actual artist, so she has to actually put them on paper. So she goes, yeah, this works here. I think this works here. And then, this doesn't work here. And so we confabbed back and forth until we finally got it to where we were both happy with it.
So did she give you like test pages or like, was it sketches?
Yeah. Before we actually got down to pages, we spent a lot of time going back and forth on character designs and layouts on the pages. She'd send things that were just little more than stick figures in boxes on to show layouts and everything. And we tried to lay out a vast majority of the book before she actually drew a full on page.
Sure.
So that way we wouldn't fall into any trip mines of, oh crap, we need another page because we screwed up this back here.
Sure, yeah. And so is it different? I mean, I'm completely ignorant of the process of writing a graphic novel, as much as I love reading them. Is it different in that, it's a lot of it's dialogue, it's very little descriptive boxes. I mean, that is something you can do in comics, but it's not necessarily done. Like, how does that work? Do you write it like a script, like a film script, or do you write more like a novel?
Well, this is where I have to credit Neil Gaiman, actually,
right.
Because my second oldest sister, was a big fan of Sandman.
Oh yeah, great.
And this is back when I was just reading X-Men almost exclusively. But back in the 90s, there was plenty of X-Men stuff to go around because you had X-Force, X-Factor, so anything with an X in front of it, I was pretty much reading it back in the day.
Yeah.
And she introduced me to Sandman. And the thing that was really cool about Sandman is that Neil Gaiman, on some of the issues, would show samples of how he wrote scripts for the comic. And I'm like, wait, I know how to write a comic now. I know the format.
Yeah. Very good.
So you can get as detailed or as loose with the details as you feel is appropriate or you want. And it depends from scene to scene, because sometimes you have a very sharp image of what you want to have on the page, and sometimes you kind of let the artist loose.
Yeah.
Like there's an action scene in Divine Intervention where I had planned it for 2 pages, and I believe Stephanie stretched it to 4 because
Oh wow.
I said, all I know is that here's the end result. Get us there.
Yeah.
And she had fun with it.
You preempted a question basically. I was going to say, how much of that is what you absolutely say, this one I really want to see, the character moving in this way, or and how much of it, like you say, is just have fun with it. I mean, is there a little element of you knowing a certain page like every now and then that you'll want?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There were several pages in Just in Divine Intervention where it's like, I want it to be this many panels, and I want it to be when you're describing the panels in the script, you can describe, the angle you want it shot at. You can even say how close zoomed in or out.
Mm.
You can find the jargon pretty easily now.
Yeah, yeah.
Bird's eye view, worm's eye view, splash page. You can find all that stuff and find it on the internet very easily now to know the jargon for when you're writing a script.
Yeah.
But there are some times where I want it very specifically this and this in panel 2, this in panel 3, and all that. And then there are some times where it's a mix between the two. Sometimes like I want panel 1 to be this, but the rest of the page you can have fun with.
That's cool.
And then, so it's just a balancing act. Sometimes within the very same story, sometimes you got to be a little more controlling. Sometimes you can be a little looser. Depends on the situation.
Do you think that you're able to compare the process of writing a novel and a graphic novel, and which do you think is more fun, or which did you enjoy more? Or is it not like that?
Oh, they're both very much enjoyable, but they are very different experiences, especially if you're not drawing the comic. Because when I'm writing a novel, it's all me. It's everything that's in my head coming out onto the page. And there are people who can give you ideas, but it's still filtered through my brain and my fingers to get onto the page.
Yeah.
Where with the comic book, it's a lot more collaborative. Because I start with the words on the page, but then Stephanie, the artist, gets the page, and they'll either interpret it, or there'll be something that they don't quite understand, so they come back to me, or they go, I don't really like this. Can we change this? Is this a big deal? And that helps make the story stronger in a lot of ways, because when you have to stand up to outside scrutiny, you have to understand why you have this that way.
Yeah.
Or so.
Did you find that hard to justify? Did you ever find it hard to justify those things to your artist?
For the most part, no.
Oh, that's good.
We had very similar philosophies in that regard, and I've never been a very gratuitous writer. I don't say, I want as much blood and guts on this page as possible. I want as many boobs on this page as visible as possible.
Right, yeah, sure.
I've never been that type of a writer. I have no aversion to nudity or violence in a comic, but I feel it needs to be either realistic or appropriate to the scenario that you're writing.
Because certainly, if you're doing something in a fantasy setting that's got like a medieval slant on it, which quite often, things that have come out of D&D might be, or D&D itself is, those things were, you had to address those things, nudity and violence and, sex. Those things are part of life now. They were part of life then as well. So, it's okay to have them. But like you say, just, being aware of the gratuitousness of it.
Yeah, Ophelia's a big fan of both of those, by the way.
Okay. That's great. I mean, I think we've covered a lot of what I wanted to ask. I mean, I really have enjoyed talking to you. Genuinely, this has been really great. I mean, the last question, which I tend to ask most people when I do these interviews, and is what brings you the greatest joy? And you can interpret that however you like in terms of what we've talked about, or your life, or whatever. But the joy is how I want to end these things. So, what brings you the greatest joy, Spencer?
That's a great philosophy, by the way, the wanting to end everything with joy. I love that. But what gives me the most joy, it works, with my work, and it works with my personal life. I like being able to share my time, my characters. I'm not going to go say, yes, I like to share my talents, because for all anybody knows, I could be a hack. I don't know.
Right.
It's up to the person reading my stuff to tell me if I'm a hack or not. but I love being able to share, because my characters are the friends that live in my head. I love being able to share them with people, and I love it when people like my friends, it becomes their friends, and we all get a bigger circle of friends.
Yeah.
And I like that in my work. I like that in real life when I can meet people, like-minded people like you, and I very much enjoyed this conversation as well.
Me too.
I enjoyed the last podcast, by the way, about Captain Marvel's. So
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
but
Yeah.
and then I just I like being able to share and being shared with. That's what brings me the most joy.
That's cool. Thank you. Right. Well, in the spirit of that, where can people find you on the internet if they are looking to talk to you after this conversation?
Well, I am very easy to reach at authorspencerstoner.com. You can there's an email page there you can get to me directly on. You can order my books there as well if you don't want to go to Amazon or any of the other fine retailers. And I have a blog, although I have to admit I'm not terribly active on that blog, but I do have links to my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'm more active on some than others, but I am still there.
Awesome.
And if anybody sends me any messages, I will answer them. Maybe not like in the next 20 minutes, but I will definitely answer them. I answer every message that comes to me.
Well, I mean, you're a little bit busy with, writing all sorts of novels and graphic novels, so I think people will let you off if you don't get back quite immediately.
Well, I hope so.
Spencer, genuinely a wonderful 45 minutes having a chat with a person who I will follow definitely online, and while chatting, I was already looking up your book on Amazon, so there'll probably be another order coming in ASAP.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, truly. Thank you very much.
Take care.